Being extraordinary means having to pay a price for it. This is an era of contract makers. Coexistence of peace and war, interweaving of rights and freedom, entanglement of love and hate is Shen Mi, who has traveled through time, a steel-straight man who cannot recognize herself clearly. Or is it a seasoned bar expert? Or the Terminator of Lies? Keywords of the novel. Nightmare Awakens without pop-ups, Nightmare Awakens TXT Complete Collection Download, Nightmare Awakens Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Crossing. Headache. Internal investment has passed, please rest assured to invest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Crossing. Headache. Internal investment has passed, please rest assured to invest. Strange room. The hazy drowsiness that had just woken up was completely dispelled by the sudden shock. Where is this? Shen Mi sat up from the bed and pushed away the blanket on her body. Her hands were slippery. The soft blanket was made of silk material and carried the warmth of her body. The walls are light yellow, with a gentle warmth. Apart from the bed, the room only has wooden wardrobes, desks, and old-fashioned wall clocks. The simple furniture layout does not affect taste, and the good paint gloss reveals considerable value, but the style is somewhat mixed. Obvious Chinese furniture shapes, but also with some European elements, such as the rounded corners of the table and the curved edges of the table. Elegant yet harmonious, it subconsciously evokes the style of the room owner. When her gaze fell on the ground, Shen Mi was shocked. The wooden floor was covered in a mess of fruit shells and unidentifiable food residues, as well as a lot of shredded paper, paper balls, and packaging bags. A mottled viscous liquid was beside the bed, emitting a strong odor. Dirty, messy, poor. Even worse than the partition I rent for 800 yuan a month. The partition. I should be renting a house. Shen Mi remembered where she should have been but not where she was, and vaguely guessed what had happened. Did you travel through time? As a street-fighting writer and creator of the story of time travel, Shen Mi couldn't believe she would become the protagonist and quickly stood up. Just as I stood up, a sharp pain suddenly hit my brain. Headache. Just like someone piercing deep into the eyes with a needle. Shen Mi took a deep breath and helped the table to prevent her body from falling. She quickly closed her eyes and remained still. The headache is not as simple as imagined, it just needs to recover a little. The continuous stinging sensation hits like waves, without any tendency to weaken. After adapting for a while, Shen Mi finally reopened her eyes, suppressed her headache and forced herself to calm down, then looked at the room again. When his gaze fell on the wooden clock on the wall again, his whole body froze as if being splashed with cold water on his head. This is an old-fashioned wall clock, very similar to the style of the Republic of China era. I have seen a similar one in my grandfather's collection before, and the old man regards it as a treasure. The metal pendulum is swaying regularly, and the curved glass dial emits a hazy light yellow light. Inside are arranged Arabic numerals in sequence. A total of 20.8. A 28-hour clock. All the numbers are neatly divided into 4 rows, forming a square without 4 corners. The center of the top row is 28, and the shortest pointer is around 20. The second pointer points to the left of 13, and the longest pointer keeps jumping rhythmically. The rules are similar to those on Earth, but the changes in the base system made it difficult for Shen Mi to decipher, and she couldn't recognize the time on the clock. A world of 28 hours a day. The reason why it is not considered a 56-hour world is because the pointer points have horizontal and vertical lines extending, dividing the entire dial into 4 areas, labeled morning, afternoon, upper half of the night, and lower half of the night. This is not Earth. Has it really crossed over? The scale on the clock forced him to accept the fact. Turning to look at the same wooden glass window, there was a quiet and lush area outside, with several 2-story white buildings scattered around the shores of the rippling lake. The sun shone gently on the water, and it was already dusk. A park-like villa area. I was in one of the buildings. Shen Mi realized where I was and walked cautiously to the door. However, the headache intensified with his footsteps, forcing him to knead his temples while pressing his ears against the thick door panel, listening to the sound outside. This is the experience of the creator of the novel. If you haven't figured out where to travel, it's best to be careful enough. Maintain your posture, quietly and quickly recall the memories before crossing. After finishing 4,000 words, I ate a handful of chicken before going to bed, and with a comfortable sense of satisfaction, I saw Duke Zhou and woke up here. After much thought, I had no idea why I had traveled through this strange time. Could it be? Today, when I went downstairs to buy cigarettes and forgot to wear a mask, I violated public morality and was punished by heaven. After more than 10 breaths, there was no movement outside the door, and there should be no one at home. Gently twisting the handle, Shen Mi looked out with her head. This is indeed a villa, and my room is on the first floor, facing the central hall, located on the side of the entrance, somewhat like the butler's room in a TV drama. The decoration style of the entire villa is consistent, simple but not simple, with dark furniture and light yellow walls complementing each other, solid and warm. The potted plants and bamboo frames in the corner of the hall are arranged in a neat and fresh manner. The feeling of quality arises naturally. Excluding the restaurant and kitchen, there are a total of 5 rooms on the first floor, 2 bedrooms, a storage room, and a bathroom. When Shen Mi walked into the last bathroom, she saw herself in the mirror. Around the age of 20, with a pale complexion, swollen eye bags, and a slightly bulky figure that lacks exercise and light at first glance, a greasy face that seems to have been unwashed for a long time, thick hair like a bird's nest, and a fluffy beard that almost successfully deceives age, recalling the dirt and chaos on the floor of the room, a word emerged from the depths of my serene heart. Dead house. Soul piercing. Is this me? Shen Mi was speechless towards the image in the mirror. The messy image made people feel a wave of despair, and the headache intensified as a result, like being struck hard on the forehead with a hammer. Calm. Taking 2 deep breaths, Shen Mi struggled to resist her headache. She had to quickly find reasons to comfort herself. It's okay, not too fat. I really want to continue working hard to pick out some good looks, but at this point my brain power is clearly not enough. The headache is getting worse and worse. Realizing that she had to find some clues as soon as possible, Shen Mi endured the pain and walked up the rotating stairs to the second floor. There is a reception hall in the middle of the second floor, with 5 rooms, but only one study room has an open door. There is really only oneself in the room. Let's relax a bit. Shen Mi was first attracted by the photo frame on the coffee table. In the old-fashioned black and white photo, there was a family of 4, and the same warm smile filled everyone's faces. The 2 adults should be the parents of the original owners, the feeling of a cultural youth in the old era. There was also a shoulder-length girl in her teens and a round-faced boy in his 60s and 70s. The boy is naturally the master of his body, with a round face and a tiger head and tiger brain, which left Shen Mi speechless for a while. Sure enough, I'm disabled. If I looked good when I was a child, I might not be as good as big. Moving to the study, it is filled with a cultural atmosphere. The square corner desk is filled with written paper, and there is an old-fashioned wired phone with a turntable on the side, which is often seen in anti-Japanese dramas. The full bookshelf surprised Shen Mi even more. Basic Psychology, ID, Ego, Superego, Lies, The 10 Traps of Psychology, The Elements of Iron People's Emotions. Almost all of them are books related to psychology. The paper on the desk is filled with intricate and elegant fonts, and the top page is titled Summary of Psychological Counseling Methods for Women Who Cheat. The familiar text explains more crucial information. This unfamiliar world is in Chinese. Through time, it seemed like soul-piercing, but there was no memory of the original owner. Shen Mi couldn't find any information about the room owner or herself, and slowly sat on the chair in front of the desk, sorting out the current situation. Rubbing the temples slightly relieved the headache, and my thoughts immediately became more flexible. There are many types of time travel. Firstly, it can be formally divided into physical wear and soul wear, and then, with the addition of the dimensions of time and space. Wearing clothing was more popular in the early days of online literature, but it is not common now. If space remains the same, wearing time, whether in the past or in the future, is called time travel. I completely rule out this situation. I'm very likely soul piercing, this is not Earth, and time cannot be determined without reference. As for this world. Shen Mi looked up at the glass chandelier above her head and the old-fashioned crank phone on the table, recalling the 20.8-hour clock in the room. The level of technology was around the 1940s and 1950s, just like in movies. Soul piercing is much more complex. It's called rebirth when the soul penetrates into the past self, and I'm obviously not either. When the soul penetrates into someone else's body, it forms the called snatching and giving up, which is my current situation. Fortunately, I haven't taken away any strange creatures, at least one person, although not fat and staying at home. The chaotic thoughts did not help, and Shen Mi was still confused, but her headache became increasingly severe. It's like a small knife, constantly playing the game of insert and pull on the brain deep in the eyes. The knife is still coated with lubricating oil, and the pain is unstoppable. With a low growl of pain, Shen Mi leaned back on the chair and tightly pressed her temples with both hands, trying to alleviate the pain deep in her brain. However, the tactile sensation associated with the pressure inevitably pulled the pain point, intensifying the intensity once again. Headache is not a disease, it hurts so much travel through the aftermath. At this moment, there seemed to be an explosion deep in the brain, and something like a barrier suddenly shattered. The sudden impact darkened Shen Mi's eyes and she was about to faint. Her consciousness seemed to spread throughout the study with the explosion, passing through the entire villa and covering the outside area. Cold sweat quickly emanated from her forehead and back. It hurt so much. In a state of high mental tension, memory fragments emerged from the cracks in the barrier. Shen Mi was delighted to discover in pain that these were some memories of the original owner. More and more fragments slowly gathered, barely forming a vivid image, and the information gradually became clear. The original owner. His name is Mo Chi. He is 22 years old and majoring in psychology at the 4th Federal University. My parents were workers at the Federal Academy of Natural Sciences and adopted an older sister at the age of 4. My parents suddenly disappeared in high school. And I relied on my older sister for my livelihood, or rather. All thanks to her care, she was someone else's child from a young age, with excellent grades. She worked and studied part-time to raise her younger brother until graduating from college, and started a psychological clinic on her own. My career has developed very well and I have made a profit. I bought this villa and moved out of my original house. This is not Earth. It's called Hot Springs City, located on the Rhodanian continent. What a strange name, mixed with Chinese and Western cultures. Time cannot be determined. With more and more information, it surges like a storm in the brain, and headaches are unbearable. Shen Mi struggled to get up, recalling the old method of using a crank phone. No need to go to the hospital. From the original owner's memory, she learned that there are also hospitals in this world, and there is emergency treatment if there is one. The pain made her body unstable. In the moment she reached out to take off the earpiece, Shen Mi accidentally knocked over the ink bottle on the desk with her elbow, and the ink quickly penetrated the paper on the desk. "What are you doing?" A sullen voice suddenly came in. Shen Mi turned her head and a woman wearing a brown coat appeared at the door. Diagonal bangs, clear eyebrows, and beautiful eyes, the slanted scarf exudes a fashionable atmosphere, which is in line with the overall intellectual elegance. The only disharmony is a frosty face. "Sister," Luoxing. Shen Mi suddenly froze. Her attention was focused on her headache, and she didn't notice Luoxing coming back. Luoxing ignored Shen Mi's dullness and angrily walked to the desk, reaching out his slender fingers to pick up the ink-soaked paper. The pages titled Summary of Psychological Counseling Methods for the Phenomenon of Misconduct are mostly covered in black ink, with a few drops of ink falling from the corners of the paper. This is the information for tonight's psychological massage for the city councilor's wife. I wrote the whole first half of the night. In Luo Xing's eyes, there was an impulse to kill someone. He turned to look at Shen Mi and said, "It's unpredictable. The new book set sail, please support us." This is a new story, and the overall setting is actually more like a fantasy or urban superpower. The rhythm can still be a bit slow. The first 15 chapters are almost all grinding and chirping, and by the 15th chapter, the main line is about to appear. It's not until the 20th chapter that we get to the main topic. Sigh, we can't change the problem of slow heating. I always feel that if there is a lack of foreshadowing, it will lead to incomplete subsequent stories. Therefore, readers understand that it is better to save more chapters before reading. However, this book is prepared to be well written, with at least 2 million words written in the contract. Therefore, as the word count increases, the slow heat of the first 50,000 words can still be tolerated. Maybe. The same sentence will ensure the completion of the book. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Heart Nightmare. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Heart Nightmare. I didn't mean to. Shen Mi, the only child, has no experience dealing with her older sister and lacks unfamiliar sibling emotions. From an apologetic perspective, she hastily explains. I have a headache and accidentally knocked it over. Seeing that the few pages of paper in his hand were already discarded, Luo Xing casually threw them into the nearby trash bin, took out the tablecloth to wipe the ink on the table, and looked at Shen Mi. I feel a bit ashamed as my hand rests unnaturally on my forehead. Let's take it as an apology. Luo Xing's voice was light, but his pace was fast. He immediately stared at Shen Mi and made an interpretation. Raising eyebrows, opening mouth and nostrils unnaturally, is a sign of surprise and fear. Well, it's more about fear. Are you so afraid of me? Oh, my eyelids have tightened, and now I'm more surprised. What's surprising? It's not the first time I've interpreted your micro-expression. Shen Mi was indeed stunned, so shocked that even her headache had slightly relieved. She searched for the original owner's memory, only then remembered that her sister, as a psychologist, was very good at interpreting micro-expressions. The original owner had suffered a lot because of this, and in front of his sister, he was like a transparent person just. Shen Mi didn't know whether to cry or laugh. She was holding her forehead because of a headache, and as for surprise, it was because of Luo Xing's good looks. Good temperament, gentle and dignified, as if a cultural woman from an old-era TV drama, even with a reserved and cute expression when angry. Seemingly sensing his younger brother's fear, Luo Xing's anger, which had solidified on his face, dissipated slightly. He also threw the cloth in his hand into the paper basket inside, saying, "If you were really so afraid of me and listened to me, you wouldn't have become like this." However, the tone once again became proficient in preaching. How many times have you said it? You're already 22 years old. Do you have some living ability? At least clean yourself up. I haven't been at home for 2 days, look at your bedroom. It's like a garbage dump. Don't always lie in bed reading romance novels, go out and exercise more, at least come to the study to review your homework. You are about to graduate, and continuing your studies is destined to be out of the question. Although you can come to work at my clinic after graduation, you won't do anything and just receive your salary. Shen Mi felt a roar in her ears, with some experiencing headaches and others being startled by sudden reprimands. Suppressing the headache and searching for memories, combined with the expression of hatred on the face of the unfamiliar sister, he quickly understood the past sibling relationship. Since childhood, MOCEI has been silent and almost unable to communicate with others normally. This situation has persisted until now, and it is likely that Luo Xing was adopted by his parents for this purpose. To find a companion for MOCEI, and mutual communication can change his psychological state. However, fortunately, I found a sister after his parents went missing. Luo Xing truly took responsibility, shouldering the responsibility of the family in taking care of their lives. Despite trying various methods, Luo Xing was still unable to restore the unpredictability of the missing string to normal. In the end, he had to give up, but still retained his sister's care and continued to take care of this elderly giant baby. Just over time, inexplicably becoming increasingly introverted, immersed in novels every day, unable to extricate oneself, and unable to even clean the room. More or less, Luo Xing should already have some resentment now. Maybe. Memories intensified Shen Mi's headache once again, and she frowned as she looked at Luo Xing in front of her. Luo Xing only then realized that Shen Mi's expression was not right. He stopped chattering and remembered that he seemed to have missed some information. "You said you have a headache?" Luo Xing asked. "I haven't seen a lying expression before." "Do you really have a headache?" "You have already asked and answered yourself, and asked me what to do." Shen Mi had a splitting headache and reluctantly nodded. Luo Xing held down the old-fashioned phone with one hand, shook the handle on it with the other, and after some charging, picked up the phone and said, "Connect me to the Renquan Central Hospital and have them send a car over. My younger brother has a headache. The address is number 5 Wabanli Street in the eastern suburbs, number 27 Anji Tinglan Villa District." Hanging up the phone, Luo Xing walked directly to the nearby bathroom and in a moment retrieved a white towel, which was still steaming hot. Headache hot compress accelerates blood circulation. Towels draped over the serene forehead, heat seeping directly into the brain but. With even more intense pain, Shen Mi felt another explosion deep in her brain, her eyes turning black and the pain fainting. The consciousness has really drifted away this time. Shen Mi felt like she had entered a wonderful state, her intense headache had disappeared a lot, and she seemed to have melted. Consciousness spreads to a large area around, as if the body has transformed into this world, extending all the way to the outside. On the grass outside the villa, unknown insects are rapidly climbing towards the top of the weeds, hoping to taste the newly grown tender leaves on the branches as soon as possible. The insects are intertwined with red and orange, and I feel that I can experience the excitement and warmth of the insects. Underground, a nest of mice lurks in a cave, about to go out to forage in the darkness. The mouse's body is blue, which is the calm color before the action. A little bird landed on the fence, but was bitten by a dormant snake next to it. When swallowed, the bird was black, revealing black despair, while the snake was orange, which was satisfaction. Shen Mi felt as if she could understand the emotional colors of this world. Including all the creatures inside, they had become emotional colors. But the body was completely unresponsive, as if it had turned into a ball of air. Looking closer, inside the villa, Sister Luo Xing is holding onto her fallen body, anxiously shouting over and over again. "Unpredictable. Unpredictable." Luo Xing's body is covered in a rolling deep red, which represents anxiety and is also mixed with a lot of gray-white, showing a sense of powerlessness. Luo Xing is really anxious. Just then, the doorbell rang. Luo Xing thought that the hospital car had arrived, and a faint orange color appeared on his body. This was a fortunate and excited color. Fortunately, he had just called the hospital and was excited because he had been saved unexpectedly. She quickly got up and ran down the stairs. Shen Mi saw clearly in the world of consciousness that there were 4 people outside the door, but not a doctor. The bodies of the 3 individuals were all black, and he instinctively felt that this black color did not represent malice, but rather seriousness and seriousness. Shen Mi noticed the girl following the 3 of them, who looked very young but unexpectedly had no color. No color. Does that mean it's not a living thing? The thought of jumping out startled Shen Mi herself. The door opened and seeing that the 4 people in front of him were not doctors, Luo Xing's anxious expression turned to surprise. "Who are you?" The tall woman led by Hot Springs City Public Security Bureau remained black and skillfully replied to Luo Xing. Your younger brother is unpredictable and needs to come with us. Did he commit a crime? Luo Sheng asked with a subconscious doubt. This is very unexpected. The probability of committing a crime is almost zero in a dead house like the unpredictable. Shen Mi, who was wandering inside and outside the room, slandered Luo Sheng for a while. If someone asks you a question, just answer it. Don't you think about it yourself? Can you have some confidence in me? Luo Sheng didn't read any lying or disguised micro-expressions on the face of the tall woman across from him, but he immediately remembered that his younger brother was having a headache. Instinctively, he opened his hands and blocked a few people from entering. He fainted. The hospital staff will arrive soon. Luo Sheng tightly held the door frame with his slender arms and blocked the door with his body, emphasizing once again. He's having a headache. It's very serious. If he walks with you now, something will happen. The tall woman pondered for a moment, and a slightly smiling voice came again. We can treat his headache. What he needs now is us, not a doctor. Believe in us. Will the police see a doctor? Luo Sheng didn't need to think at all, remained unmoved, and still stood guard at the door, saying, even if you are police officers, you should wait until he recovers from his illness. After 2 breaths of silence, the tall woman sighed and said to the person next to her, there's nothing I can do, knock me out. Luo Sheng and the wandering Shen Mi were both startled by the other person's words, but before they could react, the slender figure next to the tall woman had already taken action, and the knife landed directly on Luo Sheng's neck. Soft and limp, the slender figure sideways picked up Luo Sheng and led the other companions directly into the villa. Although she didn't detect any malice from the 4 of them, Shen Mi went from confusion to anxiety, and they knocked out Luo Sheng. Now my consciousness is like a detached soul, my body is still in the study, isn't it to be slaughtered? Just as the 4 of them were walking up the stairs to the 2nd floor, the woman at the back, who had no emotional color, seemed to have noticed where Shen Mi was and turned her head to look in the direction of Shen Mi's consciousness with 4 eyes facing each other. Shen Mi couldn't see the other's appearance at all. At this moment, all the creatures were emotional, and the woman had no color at all, almost as transparent. As the transparent woman walked, she reminded the other 3 pure black companions. Hurry up. The voice is ethereal and pleasant to listen to. The tall woman who led the way let out a sigh and walked 3 steps in 2 to the 2nd floor. Through the partially closed door, she saw the tranquility of the unconscious sitting inside. The slender figure placed Luo Sheng on the living room sofa, and a few people came together to the side of their unconscious body. What are you doing? Shen Mi shouted in her heart, wanting to struggle and cry for help, but unfortunately in vain. The transparent woman turned her head again towards the direction of Shen Mi's consciousness, extended a finger to her mouth, and made a silent gesture. We have no malicious intent. The other person didn't speak, but Shen Mi heard their expression clearly and felt a chill. Can't you just see me? Can you still hear what I'm thinking in my heart? Can we have a conversation? What kind of people are these? A series of questions dispelled the anxiety, but made Shen Mi feel a little relieved. The other party may not really have any malicious intentions. At least, I haven't seen anyone who would hurt anyone before, and there is a need to deceive people again. The transparent woman walked up to her body and reached out her hand to press on the serene chest. She remained silent for a long time like a ritual before turning her head to the 3 black people and saying, Awakened. The title is Heart Nightmare. Before Shen Mi could try to communicate with the colorless woman again, the tall woman in charge said, let's take it back first. Immediately after, the transparent woman emitted a white light resembling an angel, causing Shen Mi's colorful vision to slowly disappear. The body has returned, and Shen Mi has regained the freedom to govern her body. Just. A severe headache struck again, and the brain felt like it was being heavily pounded by a giant hammer. I really feel dizzy from the pain this time. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Capability and Cost. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Capability and Cost. I don't know how long I fell asleep, but anyway, Shen Mi kept feeling a headache until she woke up. Another unfamiliar environment similar to an interrogation room. I am sitting on a chair with my hands handcuffed to the table. Under the bright light, across from me are the 4 culprits who brought me here. The headache is still incredibly strong, almost suffocating. Shen Mi exhausted all her strength before looking at the 4 people in front of her and making contact with the previous black figure. The tall leading woman is dressed in a black trench coat and has a very good figure. This figure is not a typical otaku aesthetic, but more in the realm of fitness. Her sea blue eyes, cascading golden hair coiled behind her head, and fair skin can almost reflect light, making her a white woman. She leaned against the wall opposite Shen Mi, embracing her arms. Her beautiful face and figure formed a combination of angels and demons, but a ferocious scar under her left eye shattered the harmony and added a lot of ferocity. When Shen Mi woke up, she said in pure Chinese, "This is the Hot Spring City Supervision Bureau. I am Captain Punisher, Vila Alexandra." "What is the Punisher?" Shen Mi searched the original owner's memory and confirmed that it was an unfamiliar vocabulary. Without giving Shen Mi a chance to ask questions, she pointed to the 2 closest people and said, "Team member, Luo Qing, Rebecca." Rebecca is also a white woman with a pale face like malnutrition, black curly hair. After hearing the captain's introduction, she didn't say a word, just stared at Shen Mi and licked her lips, using her hand to stroke the cat she was holding in her arms. A very fat long-haired cat, brown-yellow Luo Qing looks much more friendly, perhaps because he is a familiar yellow person, wearing a clean white shirt, somewhat shy like a student, smiling at himself. "This guy knocked out Luo Sheng. Is Luo Sheng okay? Should I be at home?" Shen Mi quickly resumed her thinking. When her gaze fell on the last woman, Shen Mi's gaze paused. She was a girl who couldn't distinguish between races, without a doubt the transparent person with no emotional color. The pure black supervision uniform doesn't fit well, it's a whole set bigger than the girl, but it can't conceal the stunning purity. Her eyes are as bright as gemstones. If his gaze was not so dull, he could easily claim the most beautiful opposite sex that Shen Mi had ever seen. No, even if his gaze was scattered, he was still the most beautiful person that Shen Mi had ever seen. Her name is Xiao Bai. Vera saw Shen Mi's dullness and smiled. No matter what man sees a spirit doll for the first time, it's this virtue. Spiritual dolls are still unfamiliar vocabulary. Vera's reminder made Shen Mi recall the purpose of being brought here, and her heart couldn't help but beat with drums. Just as she crossed over, she was handcuffed. Shen Mi raised her hand to look at the shiny handcuffs and guessed in her heart, did the crossing be discovered? No, it shouldn't be. First of all, welcome. Vila chuckled lightly, her smile touching the scar on her face, interrupting her serene thoughts. Welcome to the world of the indenter. Contract holder. Another unfamiliar vocabulary Vera didn't explain, but turned her head to signal to Luo Qing, who cleared her throat and picked up the paper in her hand. "Captain, just leave it to me." A sudden and abrupt voice rang out from Shen Mi's heart. This almost made him exclaim, to the point where he skipped Luo Qing's next recitation. Unexpectedly, at the age of 22, he is staying at his sister's house at number 27, and Xidingland Villa District. He is a junior psychology major student at the 4th University of the Alliance, and the information is correct, isn't it? Shen Mi completely forgot to answer and was still in a state of surprise. The sudden sound was clearly made by Luo Qing. The other person had just read her message for half a day, and her tone could be verified on sight. She was definitely the same person. Just that sudden remark, Shen Mi was certain that Luo Qing never said anything. Could it be? Shen Mi's eyes suddenly widened. Answer quickly. What are you staring at? It's already 1 o'clock in the morning. The captain has been working continuously for several days and looks haggard. Hey. Just say I'll handle it. Vera can go home early and rest. Damn the work schedule. I'll bring Vera breakfast tomorrow so she can sleep more. 3 consecutive sentences rang out in her heart, and Shen Mi stared closely at Luo Qing in front of her, confirming once again that the other person had not said these 3 sentences. The fact once again convinced Shen Mi that he had the art of mind reading, which is telepathy. Combining the words, "Awakened" by Xiao Bai at the time and "Welcome to the World of the Contract Maker" by Vera, Shen Mi quickly connected these pieces of information. The contract maker is a person who has awakened powers, awakened. Awakened telepathy. In this world, there are supernatural powers. Is the situation right? Luo Qing's urging voice came again. Shen Mi nodded in confusion and turned to look at the captain of the Punisher, Vila Alexandra, who was still leaning against the wall, smiling at herself. Here are all contractors, Vera explained, clearly aware of what Shen Mi had discovered. The Punisher team belongs to the Pandora organization and is the enforcer who manages the world of contractors, including guiding newly awakened contractors. You can rest assured of this. Is guidance still locked? Shen Mi raised the handcuffs on her hands and asked discontentedly. That's because there's a certain level of danger, whether it's for you or us, especially for the newly awakened contract holders. Vila still smiled and said, "It's best to cooperate with us so that your headache can recover as soon as possible." Luo Qing seemed to mind the captain's intrusion, as Shen Mi heard his inner voice again. "Captain, just leave it to me. Why are you grabbing my words again?" The situation in front of Shen Mi is a bit confused. However, he heard the term, Pandora Institution, and although the original owner's inexplicable memory was unfamiliar with terms such as the Indenter, Punisher, and Spirit Doll, he still knew the famous Pandora. This is a well-known scientific research organization that has brought modern technology to the people of Rodinia, the self-proclaimed Iron Man of this world. Whether it is the electric lights used today, the telephone in the study, the large train and the tram in the city, they are all inventions of the Pandora organization. However, how did Pandora become the contractual management organization in Vila's mouth? Although only briefly pondering, the original owner's information about this world was interconnected like a gusher, triggering a strong headache again, forcing Shen Mi to interrupt her association. Vera spoke in her usual tone, "Your contractual ability has been measured by the spirit puppet, its telepathy. What we are doing to you now is to test your ability to activate and at a cost." The cost? Shen Mi asked back, although she was a bit surprised that the other party knew about the ability. Fortunately she didn't doubt the matter of time travel, so Shen Mi let go of some guard. "The cost is the way to end your headache," Vera explained in a calm tone. "The world of contractors is fair, and using abilities requires a price. Whenever a power is used, original sin arises. Most of the so-called original sin is illness. Your original sin is a headache, and it will only disappear after paying the price." I roughly understand. After pondering for a few breaths, Shen Mi finally understood what Vera had just said and asked, "How can I know? How can I pay the price?" Just as Luo Qing was about to speak, he was interrupted by Vila waving her hand and saying, "There's no need to follow the process. He just activated a power without our knowledge." Luo Qing was clearly surprised by this and heard Vila continue to ask Shen Mi, "Who did you hear just now?" "He." Shen Mi turned her head to signal to Luo Qing, as her hands were handcuffed and locked on the table, unable to lift them up. A red cloud suddenly rose up on Luo Qing's fair face, as if he were a wooden chicken. "Is there an impulse to do something to him?" Vera continued, "This impulse is often a way of paying the price and the only way to stop your original sin." Shen Mi turned her head to look at Luo Qing and said she had an impulse to do something, but she really didn't notice until I heard Luo Qing's voice like a repeater. "Don't say. Don't say. Don't say." This is Luo Qing's voice, "Don't say." Is it that I shouldn't say it? Don't say anything. The impulse came so suddenly, thinking back on the inner voice she had just heard. Seeing the other person's face turn red, Shen Mi almost instinctively came to a conclusion and said to everyone present. "He seems to have a crush on you, Captain Vila." Shen Mi spoke softly, but the whole room was condensed. Rebecca showed an incredible expression and turned her head to look at Luo Qing beside her, as if she had just met this person. Luo Qing's face turned even redder. She quickly glanced at Vera, hastily lowered her head, and then suddenly, as if remembering something, she sophistically said, "Don't talk nonsense." Captain Vila still maintained a smile, glanced at Luo Qing, didn't speak, and refocused her gaze on Shen Mi. Only the little white, known as the elf doll, still looked at Shen Mi, his scattered gaze as if he had not heard anything. Like a robot doll, Shen Mi finally realized what she was saying and understood that Luo Qing was indeed secretly in love with Vera. However, at this moment, he had no intention of gossiping about the people across from him, because now the headache has disappeared. He quickly sorted out the logic. His contractual ability is to read the other person's thoughts. Once activated, original sin will be activated, causing headaches. Only by paying for his contractual ability by saying what the other person thinks. Will the headache stop at the same time, it may also end the contract ability. Telepathy, because he couldn't hear any thoughts from Luo Qing at this time, and the other party's face was now flushed, constantly rubbing their hands, and their thoughts must be exceptionally active. To use supernatural abilities, one must pay a price for it, which is what Vera calls fairness. "I see, the headache has disappeared." Shen Mi took a deep breath and calmly said to the people around her. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Red and Black. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Red and Black. After more than 10 seconds, Vera glanced at Luo Qing, who still had a rosy face, and slowly interpreted. The way to activate telepathy should be through contact. He was carried onto the car by Luo Qing while unconscious, and he was handcuffed by Luo Qing. There must have been contact between the two of them. So, because the newly awakened cannot control well, they have already activated it without our attention, which leads to the target of telepathy being already Luo Qing. And then, as for the cost. Vera furrowed her brows and looked around at everyone. Contract ability is to read someone else's voice, and the cost is to speak someone else's voice. No. Little Bai, who had been observing the tranquility, suddenly spoke with an ethereal voice as usual. If you pry into others' hidden thoughts, you must reveal the truth of the world to them. This sentence fully translated Vera's speculation and sparked deep reflection among everyone present. For a moment, Shen Mi couldn't figure it out and kept silently reciting the words spoken by Xiao Bai. Vera muttered to herself. The price of peeking into secrecy is to reveal the truth. This is really strange payment logic. If the goal is only to think about the real situation, what is the cost? For example, I am thinking about 28 hours a day, and I can repeat this sentence inexplicably. No one answered. Let's test it out, Vera said with a hopeful smile on her face. She walked directly to Shen Mi and extended her right hand, wearing black leather gloves, to signal her. Shen Mi sighed lightly and placed her palm on Vera's hand. At first contact, a spiritual sensation suddenly appeared in the serene consciousness, as if an extension of the soul was about to flow towards Vera. Shen Mi carefully controlled this wonderful feeling, realizing that she could control the extension of spirituality, but she was not very proficient, which caused spirituality to be a bit disobedient. However, as time goes on, spirituality becomes more flexible and easier to manipulate. Shen Mi felt a sense of joy in her heart, which indicated that she could manipulate the transmission and reception of telepathy, and would not immediately trigger her telepathic ability when encountering anyone. Subjective consciousness can control it, far better than passive triggering, which can save a lot of trouble and loss of control. Luo Qing next to him saw the two people's palms tightly touching each other, and muttered with some dissatisfaction. Hurry up and start. After speaking, he immediately realized that this seemed to add evidence to his secret love, and his face turned red again. Shen Mi let go of her spirituality and let it flow into Vera's body along her palm. Hey! Are boys all so messy now? It's been a while since their hair was washed, and their faces are all greasy. This is talking about unpredictability. Shen Mi withdrew her palm and could still hear the following text from Vera. I'm dizzy, won't he hear me? Don't think anymore, don't think anymore, don't daydream anymore. Sure enough, there's only a repeating machine left behind. Shen Mi was not in a hurry to pay the price, because as expected, the original sin had indeed appeared, and a slight headache was spreading slowly, just like the degree of her initial headache, but it became increasingly severe with the passage of time. Is this original sin? Having relived the original sin of the headache, Shen Mi lifted her head and smiled back at Vila, who was still repeating her sentence. You despise me for being dirty. The headache came to an abrupt end. Vera's face was full of surprise, with a hint of apology, clearly a bit embarrassed, but Luo Qing next to her smiled, looking to have dissipated a lot of nervousness. Shen Mi pursed her lips. Confirmed through the second attempt just now. Indeed, the cost was to reveal the facts she had in mind to the target. The conclusion Vera had just come up with was her true emotional inclination. She was a bit disgusted with the unfathomable dirtiness. Facts, truth, are all ways of paying the price. You've been procrastinating for too long, not achieving the purpose of the test. Vera paused, feeling a bit embarrassed. I originally wanted the sun to rise in the east and set in the west, but it took you too long and made my mind wander. Do it again. Vera extended her palm again, and Shen Mi followed suit, immediately hearing an echo. It's 2 o'clock at night now. I'm staying up late again. The headache came again, and Shen Mi didn't stop this time. You were thinking, it's 2 o'clock at night. Staying up late again. Then he added, the headache has disappeared. Sure enough. Vera turned her head to look at Luo Qing and Rebecca, and smiled, repeating what she was thinking in her heart is also a statement of facts, and can also be used as a payment method. Once we figure out the cost, the most important problem will be solved. Rebecca next to her also yawned and reminded, this guarantees that he won't die from a headache. Indeed, the headache disappeared, and Shen Mi felt a burst of relief. Okay. Luo Qing, please continue with the rest of the content. Vila nodded to Luo Qing. We need to continue. Shen Mi suddenly had expectations for the upcoming test, which stemmed from the novelty and excitement of becoming a superpower. However, reason told her to be careful not to reveal that she was a time traveler. A world full of superpowers is definitely not too simple. Luo Qing didn't give Shen Mi too many opportunities to diverge her thinking, but she regained her energy. First, she picked up the paper and continued to recite. Your contract title is Heart Nightmare, and each newly awakened person will be given a title by Pandora, as measured by the spirit doll. As a contractor, you need to use your abilities carefully, swear not to harm ordinary Iron Men with contractual abilities, and ensure that this is kept as a secret from ordinary Iron Men to know. After speaking, he placed the 2 booklets in his hand in front of Shen Mi. Heart Nightmare. First, she touched the word several times, but didn't have much association. Shen Mi lowered her head and observed the 2 booklets. One is red, with shining steel nails on it, solemn and solemn. The bumps on the cover form a pattern of 2 straight swords crossing through the heart, with 5 prominent characters at the top. The Covenant of the Contract. The other book is a pure black one, with 2 intersecting death sickles formed in the center of the equally concave and convex cover. A large water droplet drops directly below the intersection point, which should represent blood, and there are also 2 words at the top. Heavenly Punishment. Opening the Covenant of Contract Parties, there are small red characters written in blood on it. The contractor swears that. Firstly, abide by the laws of Time. Secondly, illegal gains obtained through contractual capacity and at the cost of violating the Iron Man law will be confiscated by Pandora and punished in accordance with the relevant regulations of the Heavenly Punishment. Thirdly, the other book, Heavenly Punishment, is The legislative purpose is to punish criminals and protect Iron Men. According to the Covenant on Contract Parties, and in conjunction with the Union government, the only government agency of Iron Men in Rodinia, the Iron People Criminal Law is formulated, with this law as the standard for criminal punishment for contract parties. Firstly, the task of this law is to combat all criminal acts committed by contractors and ensure the safety of the coalition government, Pandora's institutions, and all citizens. Secondly, the crime is statutory and everyone is equal. Thirdly, the compatibility of criminal responsibility in punishment. Fourthly, the concept of crime, classified as negligence, intent, age of application. Eighth, corresponding content. 1. It is necessary to comply with the management of Pandora's institutions. 2. After awakening the contract, the new contractor must comply with the testing, appraisal, and filing procedures of the Pandora Agency, and must comply with the arrangements of the local Pandora Supervisory Agency. If they violate the contract, they will be punished according to the situation, with imprisonment ranging from 3 months to 1 year. 7. If the circumstances are particularly heinous, the offender will be punished for violating other regulations of heavenly punishment, and will also be judged as an exile contract. 25. If the contractor harms humans without justifiable reasons and causes minor injuries, the sentence shall be imprisonment for not less than 1 year but not more than 3 years, and if the circumstances are severe, the sentence may be appropriately increased, up to a maximum of 5 years. 38. Intentional homicide. The highest sentence is death. This NEMA is equivalent to the charter and punishment of the contract world. Shen Mi was greatly surprised and looked up at Luo Qing, only to find that the other person's face was dignified and solemn, with no hint of shyness. Oath. The new contractor, Heart Nightmare, will accept the provisions of the covenant and the heavenly punishment. Luo Qing's voice was low and serious, staring at Shen Mi. Shen Mi felt a goosebump and tried to maintain a natural response, saying, "I accept it." "Can you not accept it?" Shen Mi's slander is that the first clause is, the new contractor must comply with the testing, appraisal, and filing of Pandora's institution. The violator will be sentenced to 3 months to 1 year of irregular imprisonment. Please read out all the regulations of the Covenant on Contract Parties and Heavenly Punishment loudly in sequence. Luo Qing guided meticulously. Her gaze was full of firmness, as if in worship. Shen Mi looked up at Luo Qing and saw him as if he were a carved stone statue. Only then did she refocus her gaze on the red and black booklets. These 2 booklets are the laws of the contracting parties, and the more the people in front of them respect them, the more they prove that as contracting parties, they have social rules and abide by them. This is actually a good thing. If there are no rules, superpowers can cause a lot of social chaos. Read and study. Anyway, I am also a law-abiding person, inexplicably constantly pondering in my heart. Just the 2 books add up to hundreds of pages, and it can be estimated that there are tens of thousands of words. Don't you want to rest early? So formal. Fortunately, it was not coding, but recitation. With tens of thousands of characters, it was estimated that even hair would fall out, using copying. Shen Mi, while diverging her thoughts, picked up red and black, and under the gaze of the 4, turned to the first page and began reciting. I feel like reciting a text in front of a teacher in elementary school. Taking advantage of this effortless effort, Shen Mi finally relaxed and mechanically read word by word according to the text in the book, imitating the commonly used reading pens in early childhood education on Earth, and was able to read with a certain accuracy. As her mind gradually became lively, Shen Mi read and quickly recalled the world from the unfathomable memories of the original owner, Rodinia continent. This world has proven to be a planet, and Rodinia is surrounded by oceans. The mainland humans call themselves Iron Man and have thrived to this day. It is said that the Iron Man civilization originated from the huge island of Aercula in the northeast corner of Rodinia. Iron people also have racial distinctions, including the yellow-skinned people known as the Tang people, the tall and strong Dongsi people, the fair-skinned Europa people, and the Hessa people with nearly brown-black skin. All of them emerged from the island of Aercula and became the rulers of the Rodanian continent. There is no doubt that Tang people have characteristics of the yellow race. Captain Vila in front of me should actually belong to Domsi people, tall and strong. Domsi people. Mrs. Domsi. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Mentors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Mentors. Shen Mi was shaken by the fact she associated with herself, causing a stir in her heart, to the point where she interrupted her mechanical reading after quickly giving an apologetic look. He continued to click. Tang people. Asians, Domsi people. Mrs. Domsi, the familiar term Europa, refers to Caucasians, also known as Caucasians in the conventional sense. The iron people of this world are inevitably related to the people of Earth. Even if it's not a descendant, there must be a great connection. After all, everyone speaks Chinese, which can clearly indicate the problem. Unexpectedly, I almost took a breath of cold air. Because everyone communicates together, the language gradually becomes unified into Chinese. Let's put it this way, so when using Chinese, there are also transliterated names in Western languages. Such as Rodinia, such as Aercula Island. In memory, it is shown that the official institution of the Iron People, known as the federal government, is the conventional Iron People state institution. In addition, there is the famous Pandora. An ancient institution that can be traced back to the birth of the Iron People. It worships science and is a representative of the intelligence and science in the hearts of the Iron People, accompanying them in conquering the entire Rodanian continent. Pandora's Federal Academy of Natural Sciences is said to have started researching nuclear energy. Nuclear energy. As a science student, Shen Mi couldn't help but associate with the technology tree of this world, realizing that it was indeed crooked, and quickly found the reason. The original owner's memory did not contain the concept of oil. There is no oil in this world. Without oil, there should be a big problem. After all, oil is the foundation of industrial civilization. Without a background in engineering, Shen Mi can only roughly speculate on the above conclusion. As for the specific connection between oil and industrial development, he is not very familiar with it. However, he inexplicably associates this conclusion with a mistake in elementary school textbooks. Coal and oil are not made from ancient plants. With a restrained mind, Shen Mi looked at the four people in front of her again with her spare light, and found that the world already had guns. All members of the self-proclaimed Punisher team in front of her were wearing handguns. In my memory, there are already continuous submachine guns in this world. The absence of fossil fuels does not affect the emergence of firearms, which makes sense. But what about electricity? This world has electricity. Human beings on Earth still rely mainly on thermal power generation. There is no oil in this world, and coal production is not high. Why is electricity so popular? Digging deep into the original owner's memory, we finally found the root cause of the problem. Electricity comes from the mysterious symbol energy, studied by Pandora. Symbol energy has a wide range of uses, with the most representative being the generation of electricity, and even facilities such as telephones and lights have emerged. Even cars are powered by electricity. The use of this symbol energy is precisely the root cause of the rapid changes in the lives of the Iron People. Pandora has long publicly disclosed to the public that the current electricity supply comes from symbol energy. Although Pandora is a natural science institution, it is extremely mysterious, and the original owner's memory cannot obtain more information. Captain Vila mentioned that the Inspectorate, also known as the Punisher team, belongs to the Pandora organization. They are clearly the police organization of the contract world, responsible for maintaining the safety of the contract world in this city, combating crime, and helping newly awakened contract world find ways to pay the price. This indicates that the Pandora institution has also conducted research on contractors, and there is a significant correlation. Does this mean that the contractor is related to the energy of the symbol source? The Pandora institution was shrouded in a thick fog, making Shen Mi feel that the true situation of this institution is much more complex than the iron people represented by the original owner, which is what ordinary people believe to be a natural science research institution. Regarding whether the energy of the symbol source is related to the contractor, you can ask a few people in front of you later. Shen Mi saw that she had reached the last page and victory was almost right in front of her. As for the content, then it can only be ha. For the new world that has arrived through time travel, Shen Mi naturally lacks a sense of belonging. He himself did not realize that he was still observing and examining the world as an observer, rather than participating as a member. If I can return to Earth, I still have to go back to Earth. Although as a street-fighting writer, life is naturally miserable and difficult, and I am often criticized and questioned by readers who engage in prostitution, at least that is my own home, with the affection of parents and the friendship of friends. Even if you become a contractor and have superpowers, how can you be better than home? I miss my mother's braised pork belly just as the delicious food caused Shen Mi's stomach to rumble. The marathon-style reading finally came to an end. After the last sentence of heavenly punishment was rigidly paraphrased, Shen Mi looked around the crowd with embarrassment and asked silently with a look. Is this enough? In fact, he was very worried that the several solemn, stone statues, devoutly listening to him recite across from him would rigidly say to him, I didn't read it sincerely enough, I need to do it again. Fortunately, what she was worried about didn't happen. Vera let out a long sigh and looked at Shen Mi with some helplessness. No matter which newly awakened contractor, they are all perfunctory at this stage. Only when you see us again and face the team of punishers as criminals will you regret it. Shen Mi's blush, as if she was caught by the teacher on the spot in class. Forget it. Captain Vila gestured to Luo Qing, who placed the two booklets, red and black, directly in front of Shen Mi and opened the handcuffs he had locked on the table before saying, Put these two books away and they will accompany you throughout your long life as a contractor. Upon hearing the other person's prayer-like persuasion, Shen Mi felt a bit uneasy in her heart. You can go home now. Luo Qing's gaze shifted and he shyly said, There's one more final step. Also. Shen Mi widened her eyes. The last step is psychological testing. There are over 300 questions in total, covering the entire exam paper. According to Luo Qing, it is necessary to test whether the new contractor has a healthy mentality and whether there are dangerous psychological tendencies. Of course, psychological problems are equated with anti-social and anti-human, anti-Pandora and anti-iron people. Only by passing the test in this section will a Hot Spring City Contract Holder Handbook be sent, which includes some management regulations for contract holders, as well as some life guidelines for contract holders in Hot Spring City. Contract holders need to maintain confidentiality in front of ordinary iron holders and have the responsibility to prevent them from knowing the existence of contract holders. If they violate this, they will be punished by the heavenly punishment. So, in every city, there are fixed places specifically open to contractors, such as bars, trading places, entertainment venues, etc. These places are recorded in the handbook, which is equivalent to the contractor's living area planning in Hot Springs City. According to Luo Qing, even after all the tests are completed, a Punisher team member will be sent to become a mentor for Shen Mi's contract maker, with a 1-month shared life. This can not only impart experience, but also prevent accidents for newly awakened contract makers. The team of Punishers is actually fulfilling their duties. Shen Mi couldn't help but hope that if it were Xiao Bai, it would be best. Captain Vila probably wouldn't do such a job. If Xiao Bai couldn't do it, Rebecca, who is also a woman, could also make do with it. It must not be Luo Qing. Never be Luo Qing. Who wants to live with a man? That's a whole month. For the final test, Shen Mi's original owner was a psychology major college student. With an unpredictable level, she was adept at dealing with this type of psychological questionnaire. Although she was somewhat naive and did not belong to good students, she still attended classes on time. It was always at home, and whether she stayed in the teacher's room or in bed was not much different. It's not good to stay in bed all the time. I always have to go to the classroom to listen to classes, which is equivalent to doing exercise. As the original owner remembers. Even if it's just daily cultivation, it can still give the original owner some psychological concepts. At least, Shen Mi feels that for the exam paper in front of her, the 4 members of the Punisher team may not have their own expertise. There were no accidents, and after the final bonus and deduction calculations, the result of Shen Mi's mental health was obtained. For this result, I tossed and turned until dawn. Finally, all the tests have been completed. This is a 28-hour world. Staying up all night is equivalent to staying up all night in an internet cafe and having an early morning session. Shen Mi is exhausted and her eyes are full of drowsiness. Vila stretched lazily inside. It's finally over. I can take you home now. Shen Mi stood up. To move around, she was taken out of the building by several people due to the soreness in her body from sitting for a long time. The dark corridor was not lit, and Shen Mi didn't look back until she walked out of the door. She had sat in a 3-story small building for the whole night, and the sign at the entrance of the building read, Hot Springs City Supervision Bureau. Not far away was the familiar building of the Hot Springs City Public Security Bureau in her memory. We often use the identity of the Public Security Bureau to act. Vera explained, this is more conducive to action in the Iron People's Society. After all, the Public Security Bureau is the law enforcement agency of the Iron People's Society. This is quite reasonable. Exhausted Shen Mi finds it difficult to think about these things and just wants to go home as soon as possible and throw herself onto the bed. Luo Qing drove a car over, which was similar to a black old-fashioned car from the old era, but without a chimney. Opening the car door, Shen Mi realized that the others had no intention of getting on, and was suddenly disappointed. Really, Luo Qing is my mentor. The situation suddenly reversed just as Shen Mi was filled with grief and anger. Rebecca placed the big yellow cat in her arms directly on the back seat, beside Shen Mi. What is this? Shen Mi asked in confusion, what do you mean? Your contract mentor for this month. Vera said with a smile. Cats. Shen Mi suddenly froze and said, isn't it Luo Qing? How could it be a cat? I have a field mission today. How can I have time to accompany you for a month, whispered Luo Qing, sitting in the driver's seat. Luo Qing's answer did not answer Shen Mi's question. He still looked incredulously at the few people outside the car and pointed to the fat yellow cat next to him. Are you sure? It can serve as a mentor. Crazy. Vera smiled and didn't answer, but the cat next to her reached out its paw and stroked its beard, revealing a magical expression of dog eyes looking down at people and speaking Chinese. Young man, don't underestimate cats. WOC. This sentence seemed like a bolt from the blue, shattering the tranquil sweat. The cat is talking. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Story. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Story. Vera smiled and said, this is also a member of the Punisher squad. Do you know Cat Kate? Shen Mi still looked at the fat yellow cat incredulously, confirming that the expression on the other person's face was indeed human, as if saying to Shen Mi. I have no problem, young man. It is indeed a member of the Punisher team, and the earliest one among us. I think Uncle Cat is the most suitable contract mentor for you because he has enough experience. Vera patiently explained, from our current work schedule, Uncle Cat is also quite suitable. He hasn't had many field tasks recently, so he happens to have time to accompany you. Luo Qing in the driver's seat pursed her lips and said, sending someone to go will have to bear the cost of food. I'm afraid the captain is trying to save cat food, right? Uncle Cat will send it to you to save money on cat food. Vera shrugged her shoulders without expressing a rebuttal. Shen Mi looked at the chubby cat next to her again and felt that the professional image of the contract maker established overnight by the Punisher team was disappearing before her eyes. I am also a contractor, ability is just possession. The fat cat reached out its paw and licked it, disdainfully saying, is it worth making such a fuss about? Shen Mi nodded numbly. You're right. Indeed, this is a world of supernatural abilities, and the appearance of various strange abilities is not surprising. It's just that this person and cat sit side by side in the back of the car, with their eyes facing each other, making Shen Mi still feel an indescribable strangeness. Especially as the cat continues to make various human expressions. After Vera waved goodbye, the electric car slowly started, giving it a sense of acceleration. For newcomers to the contract, this is just opening the door to a new world. I don't know if he intends to lead by example to Shen Mi, Luo Qing said to himself while driving. The sky is already bright, and the bright sun jumps out of the horizon from afar, casting its light on all things. The entire hot spring city seems to have woken up from a deep sleep, with people gradually emerging from mixed Chinese and Western-style buildings to welcome a new day. There are Europeans in suits and leather shoes, rushing towards the tram station with briefcases between them. A yellow-skinned Chinaman stood in front of a fast food restaurant, holding a sandwich in one hand and a cup in the other, wolfing down breakfast. A convoy of several carriages, mostly brown-skinned Hesse people dressed in cleaning uniforms, collected the iron trash cans on the roadside one by one, dumped all the garbage on the carriages, and transported it out of the city living. Together without any discord among different races has once again created a strong sense of unreality in Shen Mi, as if she is in an old movie. Quickly arrived at the downtown square of Hot Springs, which had been visited countless times. Cars shuttle along the roundabout road, and inside the roundabout is a huge square with a statue of a person holding a giant axe and shield. Chongsheng. In my memory, Chongsheng was an ancient person more than 2,000 years ago, who was the leader of the Pandora organization at the time and led the Iron People to rush out of Aercula Island. He was the pioneer of returning to the Rodanian continent. Therefore, he was respected by the Iron People throughout his long history and worshipped for generations as a symbol of freedom. At this moment, Shen Mi once again focused her gaze on the face of Chongsheng, but saw a completely different feeling. This revered sculpture has a flatter face and fine straight hair, typical features of Tang dynasty people. Shen Mi's mind moved and she turned to look at Fat Meow licking her front paws, who seemed to have been paying attention to Shen Mi's gaze. Being watched by a meow completely dissipated the previously drowsiness. Have you always been attached to the cat? The plan to squint in the car for a while was hopeless, and Shen Mi decided to chat with her mentor. The yellow fat cat sat up, with its front paws extended to both sides, and made a posture of spreading its hands flat. The long beard on the cat's face began to tremble, and it spoke. I don't want to do this either, there's nothing I can do. Meowing and meowing, but the tone blended with the weightiness of this middle-aged man, making Shen Mi make some guesses about the age and gender of Cat Kate. However, the strange feeling of talking to the cat became even stronger. Don't try to understand other people's secrets. Fat Cat said mysteriously, understanding me is not within the scope of teaching you. You should think more about yourself. This is a personal privacy question that I mind asking. I've been educated by cats. Shen Mi grasped the emotions of her mentor and lowered her head to ponder on a few unanswered questions. Now was the opportunity for communication. After a pause, Shen Mi humbly asked the cat, what will happen if the contractor doesn't pay the price? In the end. Good question. Fei Miao seemed very satisfied with Shen Mi's attitude. She even stood up straight, leaned back on the car seat, revealing her furry white belly, and hugged her cat's paws in a thoughtful manner. This is particularly the case for a university professor. Generally speaking, this situation does not occur because original sin is painful and no one can persist, watching as the pain and illness worsen. However, there are always special circumstances where when payment cannot be completed, the pain of original sin can be so great that the contracting party loses consciousness, ultimately suffering to death, or there is a probability of losing self-awareness and becoming a spirit doll. Spirit doll. The second time I heard the word spirit doll, the perfect face of Xiao Bai came to my calm mind. Her gaze was dull, but it was so beautiful that it was suffocating. From the appearance, Xiao Bai is an extremely beautiful girl, but her eyes are always empty and her gaze is scattered, as if she has lost her soul. In the world of emotional colors, when she awakens, Xiao Bai also has no biological emotional colors. Yes, it's a spirit doll. You've already seen Xiao Bai. The cat had already guessed what Shen Mi was thinking. Continuing, he said, spiritual dolls are products of the indentured who have not been able to pay the price and have lost their self-awareness. They only have simple mechanical thinking, and even find it difficult to live and care for themselves. They seem to have lost their spiritual intelligence and become a part of this world. Meow. What I mean by this part is the same as air, water, and earth. Losing the intelligent thinking of higher life and becoming a lower-level organism without thinking. Shen Mi summarized Fei Miao's words and sighed. How could such a thing happen? This is a bit cruel. It shows that Xiao Bai used to be a contractor, but because she didn't pay the price, she eventually lost her self-awareness and became a spirit puppet. She used to be a human with superpowers, but now just a vegetative. Awakening at that time, Xiao Bai had a conversation and explained to herself that there was no malice, and this behavior only originated from her mechanical thinking, just like a machine working. Shen Mi's last sentence caused a misunderstanding among the fat cat. It thought Shen Mi was asking how the spirit doll came into being, and couldn't help but furrow its brows and rack its brains to think about how to answer this question. Even the two round pupils turned into two fine lines just as Shen Mi regained consciousness from her thoughts. The fat cat suddenly used its right paw to hit its left paw, making a human, there's a way, punch gesture, and smiled at Shen Mi, saying, I'll tell you a story. At first, Iron Man had no contract holders, and his supernatural abilities came from another creature on the continent, the elves. The fat cat started telling stories to children in a serious and instructing tone, creating an illusion for Shen Mi. When she was a child, her mother held a picture book and gently said, from a long, long time ago. Shen Mi pretended to listen and listened as the fat cat continued to speak on its own. Elves are perfect creatures. They coexist harmoniously with nature and are almost a part of it. They possess perfect looks and gentle nature, which means that every elf is an unparalleled beauty. They are simply perfect creatures favored by the Iron God. They not only give them a perfect appearance, but also possess various magical powers. Iron God is an illusory deity in this world, the original creator of intelligent creatures, with a status equivalent to that of Nuwa in Eastern mythology and Prometheus in Western mythology. Seizing the key vocabulary, Shen Mi asked, magic. Yes. It's magic. Seeing Shen Mi's serious thinking, the fat cat clearly showed a slight improvement, its whiskers trembling even more violently, and its paws swaying. The greedy Iron Man coveted this magical power and sent people to the Elven Kingdom to learn it. No, not to learn, but to steal more suitable, or to steal. So, the Iron Man's tribe succeeded, they obtained the method to manipulate mysterious powers, and their descendants began to appear with supernatural beings. However, stealing means punishment. The high and mighty Iron God did not allow mediocre Iron Man to gain mysterious power for nothing, so he lowered the divine punishment and made Iron Man pay the price after using supernatural abilities. Speaking of which, Fat Meow's face showed a fierce expression, as if imitating the extreme and arrogant Iron God, revealing 4 sharp canine teeth. So, the cost and original sin appeared, and the contractor appeared. Once the contractor only used power without paying the cost, original sin would turn the Iron Man into an unconscious elf. That is, an elf doll, which we now call a spirit doll. This is almost like a curse that has accompanied the Iron Man to this day. Spiritual dolls have no independent consciousness, and like elves, they have the power to coexist harmoniously with heaven and earth. Like the sky, earth, wind, and water, they are part of the world. What's even more ironic is that when the contractor turns into a spirit doll, no matter how ugly they look, they will transform into a perfect elf-like appearance, extremely beautiful. The cat tells a mythical and moving story with vivid language and rich movements, serene yet full of flavors. This is a cursed story. If it's true, then strength and risk are equivalent. Fat Cat made a summary. Otherwise, what do you think the job of the Punisher team is? It's to help new contractors pay the price smoothly until they become proficient. That's why I became your mentor. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Parade. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Parade. Shen Mi nodded solemnly, which indeed contained risks. If we frequently use our contractual ability, in case something unexpected happens and we cannot pay the contractual price, the result is destined to be tragic. Either a headache or death, or a complete body. Who can guarantee to always be dry while walking by the river? Luo Qing, who was driving ahead, kept listening to the conversation between the two and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Without looking back, he softly reminded, Uncle Cat has a first-class ability to weave mythological stories. In the future, there will be kittens that do not lack early childhood education. Get out of here, who wants to give birth to a kitten? I'm human. The fat cat was unhappy and poked open. Luo Qing looked sympathetically at Shen Mi behind her through the rearview mirror and reminded her, don't be taken seriously by Uncle Cat's story. He casually said. Elves don't exist, they only exist in legends. Originally it was just a legend, written by Fat Cat herself. Shen Mi had to recall the term elf and found that in her impression, there were only legends and contemporary novelists. She couldn't help but guess which of the stories earlier were legends, and which were fabricated by cats based on legends. The fat cat, however, looked proud and said to Luo Qing, is imagination good? Do you have such good imagination? I am a writer's cat. Seeing the proud and coquettish appearance of Fat Cat, Shen Mi chuckled lightly, lowered her head and pondered for a few seconds before asking the second question. Fat Cat Mentor, is awakening to become a contractor random? Why does the Pandora organization hide the fact that contractors exist from ordinary iron people? First of all. Meow. Don't call me Fat Cat. Fat Cat looked at Shen Mi discontentedly, and then pointed his paws at Luo Qing driving, saying, you're about the same age as him, call me Uncle Cat. Afterwards, Uncle Cat nodded confidently and said, it's random. It all depends on luck. If you're lucky, you'll become a contractor. After finishing speaking, the cat seemed to associate something with it, lost in thought, and finally murmured in a trance for a long time. If you have bad luck, you will become a contractor. That's also true. The awakening to become a contractor is a matter of both good and bad luck. Shen Mi felt lost in thought. As for why the Pandora organization conceals the existence of contractors, you should be able to imagine. Iron people pursue freedom and fairness, although these things have never existed. Once it is announced that someone has superpowers, contractors are easily hostile. Why do you have superpowers? Meow. I don't have them. The Iron Man himself is a cruel species that is both conservative and crazy. They will not identify with someone who is inherently stronger than themselves, and the result will inevitably be that the contract maker will become an outsider. If the Iron Man can truly tolerate all of this, why would the elves in ancient legends disappear from the current continent? Sure enough, this is consistent with my own speculation. Once extraordinary abilities appear, the opposition between extraordinary and ordinary is inevitable. After a pause, Shen Mi asks the third question. Is Pandora's mastery of rune energy related to the contractor? Upon hearing this question, Luo Qing couldn't help but turn around and glanced at Uncle Cat, meow. Uncle Cat stretched lazily and let out a long meow, I don't know. I don't know. Seeing Uncle Cat lift his head and look out of the car, Luo Qing also regained his shyness, seemingly completely ignoring his own problem. Shen Mi secretly felt that there seemed to be a tacit understanding between the two of them. They couldn't tell themselves. Behind the scenes, besides being really unclear, there were also situations such as not being able to say, not daring to say, and so on. Now Uncle Cat and Luo Qing are clearly showing the latter. Is it impossible to say? Still afraid to say. Shen Mi suddenly became interested in this deliberate concealment and sighed in her heart. It would be great if she could have Luo Xing's ability to read micro-expressions, so that she could directly see through the two of them lying. As she thought about this, Shen Mi almost burst out laughing foolishly. Reading micro-expressions is just to see through real thoughts. I have already awakened and possess telepathic superpowers, which are more direct and powerful than any other micro-expression. It seems that I have not yet adapted to the identity of an indenter, but actually thought of Luo Xing first, not my own supernatural abilities. However, don't try to eavesdrop on the voices of both of them to get the answer. Both of them are law enforcers in the world of contract makers, and I am just a newcomer who has been under 24 hours, no, 28 hours. I decisively give up the idea of using my abilities to get the answer. Using my abilities requires touching the bodies of both of them. This intention is too obvious. Moreover, this question is not necessarily necessary, it is just pure curiosity, and the motivation to take risks and pursue answers is slightly lacking. Luo Qing turned a corner along the street and chatted with the person and cat behind him. The electricity generated by the energy of Fuyuan has greatly promoted the development of technology, and the lives of the iron people are rapidly changing. Electric cars, telephones, electric lights, and these things have become popular in recent decades. My grandfather often talks about using fish oil lamps when he was a child, and going to the city is all by ox car. Oh my goodness. That era was really boring. Uncle Cat relaxed and looked very comfortable. The electric light came to me when I was a child, but even now, there are still poor people who can only use fish oil or sheep oil lamps. I think the biggest progress has been in nightclubs and karaoke halls, which is a groundbreaking innovation. Speaking of this, Uncle Cat regained his composure and excitedly said. You two kids haven't been there yet. Meow. Rich nightlife, with many beautiful young girls inside, passionate and unrestrained. I am a nightclub cat. Don't worry, Xiao Qing, I'll take you there next time. Meow. Wait for me to finish teaching this guy. Luo Qing seemed to understand the hidden meaning in the old cat's words. His shy face suddenly turned red, and Shen Mi could see it from the rearview mirror. It's just quiet, but I can't help roast in my heart. Don't worry, according to this speed, we will soon enter the information age, which is much more exciting than now. You can't understand how attractive online games are. As she spoke, Shen Mi became interested in the age of the cat and asked, Uncle Cat, how old are you this year? 38. Fat Cat had not yet regained consciousness from the nightclub's longing, and casually said, Uncle Cat, 3 or 8, 1 flower. The Hot Springs City Public Security Bureau is located in the western suburbs, and the wealthy area in the eastern suburbs where Shen Mi lives almost spans the entire city. It takes a lot of time for electric cars to enter the eastern suburbs, with stops and stops. Luo Qing looked at the watch with a 28-hour scale and said that it would be there in half an hour. The population density in affluent areas is not particularly high, but the traffic on the roads has significantly increased. However, when electric vehicles turn, a large number of railway riders suddenly appear on the roads. These people wear different clothes and have people of all colors. They overwhelmingly block the whole road. The people in front pull up banners and the people behind follow. The guys in their hands are also diverse, including sticks, kitchen knives, carrying poles, shovel, steel forks, wrenches, etc. A young woman wearing a white shirt raised her horn and shouted loudly. With each shout, the people behind her all shouted in unison, very powerful. Getting closer, Shen Mi finally saw the big characters on the banner clearly. We want energy from the source, we oppose nuclear energy. Nuclear power is a devil, a disaster for the iron people. And what everyone shouted in unison was, oppose the alliance government's continued nuclear testing, we don't need nuclear energy. The future of Iron Man lies in the energy of talismans. Fuyuan energy is safe. This is a parade. Opposed the alliance government's development of nuclear energy. Shen Mi roughly guessed the scene before her. The iron protesters in the parade have a grand momentum, with thousands of people already present. Almost no one dares to stop them. In the distance, some police officers from the Public Security Bureau have appeared, but only a dozen or so people dare not approach and can only drive to follow the protesters from a distance. Here we go again. Luo Qing, who was driving, had to slow down and park the vehicle on the side of the road, waiting for the protesters to pass by, muttering softly. This is already the 8th consecutive day. Uncle Cat continued to lean back nonchalantly. However, the Hot Springs City Hall should have thought that today's parade would be more serious. Why didn't they prepare early? The City Hall is also in a difficult situation, such a large-scale parade, Luo Qing muttered. Why is it more serious today? Shen Mi asked Uncle Cat for advice. It's very simple. Uncle Cat straightened his body and said, yesterday, the Alliance Academy of Natural Sciences conducted a nuclear test in Taizhan City, a northern province. It exploded, but the news was not blocked and was published in the newspaper. Since the Alliance government and Pandora jointly issued a statement a week ago, preparing to rely on the Alliance's Academy of Natural Sciences to conduct nuclear energy experiments, the public has started to panic for some reason. Almost all cities in the Alliance are spontaneously organizing marches to resist the use of nuclear energy. Yesterday's explosion further catalyzed a wave of resistance. Oh. So it's like this. Shen Mi nodded. This is Iron Man's fear of new things regardless of the era. There is a fear among the public towards the development of science and technology, which is easy to understand. Thinking that the supervisory department or the punishment team is located is almost equivalent to the special forces of the public security department, Shen Mi asked, does the supervisory department not participate in maintaining public security? Of course not. The management of the Iron People Society is the responsibility of the Alliance government, and our Supervision Bureau is only responsible for matters related to the contractors. Uncle Cat smiled and said, his eyes suddenly awkwardly. For example, the Supervision Bureau may find the culprit behind the instigation. The culprit? Luo Qing asked in confusion. Why do the people march? The purpose of the march is to resist nuclear testing. What is the reason for resisting nuclear testing? Because the Iron People are afraid of the harm brought by nuclear energy. Think carefully. Uncle Cat's eyes narrowed again. How do the Iron People know the danger of nuclear energy? The statement has only been published for a day, and even the people of our Supervisory Bureau do not understand what nuclear energy is. Why do the people feel afraid of nuclear energy? Where did they come from? Are you saying? Luo Qing's mouth widened in surprise. Someone deliberately spread statements about the danger of nuclear energy to the Iron People. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Going Home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Going Home, of course. Uncle Cat nodded and said, not through official radio and media channels, but all cities in the Federation are being incited at the same time, indicating that it is an organized action, and there may be contractors involved. Who could it be? Luo Qing had fully understood and guessed, on the southern side of the tribe. Or Voodoo. Blackwater Company. Shen Mi roughly understood the three terms mentioned by Luo Qing from the memory of the original owner. Perhaps every Iron Man on this continent knows some of them. The southern tribe refers to the southern province of the federal government, which has a relatively backward economy and a majority of Hesse people with brown skin. Similarly, because Hesse people are often discriminated against, the southern provinces have always had a tendency to secede from the Federation. Voodoo, on the other hand, is a well-known underground organization on the Rodanian continent that has been passed down for a long time, even dating back to the era of immortality. As for Blackwater Company, it is the largest mercenary company and bounty hunter organization on the mainland, And even the federal government often hires armed personnel from Blackwater Company to form temporary mercenaries. Of course, there is not much information in the original owner's memory about Voodoo and Blackwater Company, which may be because they are far from life, and the events of the Southern Tribe almost appear in newspapers every once in a while. Don't be fooled by the Southern Tribe. Uncle Cat showed a disapproving cat face. Who can explain it clearly until the facts are clarified? Luo Qing nodded and stopped talking. Uncle Cat turned his head to Shen Mi and said, if that's the case, having a contractor participate in such a thing would also be considered as a punishment. Of course, the federal government needs to apply to Pandora in order for us contractors to help with the work. Shen Mi nodded thoughtfully, confirming the word spy from her memory before sighing and exclaiming, it's a bit like a spy, a special mission. Of course. Uncle Cat became proud again. As a cat, the ability to obtain intelligence is unparalleled. So don't underestimate me, I'm a spy cat. This cat is proud and delicate. Silent and speechless, she smiled. At first, he was puzzled why Uncle Cat would become a member of the Punisher team, but now he understands. The Punisher team may have a lot of intelligence gathering work, and Uncle Cat, who uses a cat as his body, has a unique advantage in this area, actually. Luo Qing heard Uncle Cat's arrogance and turned to Shen Mi, saying, I think the captain originally wanted you to join the Punisher team. Me. Shen Mi was a bit surprised. With her bloated figure and a lack of exercise in her otaku physique. No matter how you think about it, it's far from the impression of 007. When Xiaobai detected that your ability was telepathic, the captain probably had this meaning. Luo Qing turned to look at the still long parade outside the car window, leaned against the driver's seat with both hands clasped in his arms, and continued. By the way, you still don't know about the ability of spirit dolls to measure contracts. Spirit dolls have this ability, and as for not letting you join later, it may be because of your cost. Which is quite disappointing. I know that spirit puppets can measure contractual ability, and I saw it at that time. Shen Mi thought about the second half of Luo Qing's sentence and found it difficult to understand. The cat mentor quickly explained, mind reading is of great value to the Punisher team, whether it's for intelligence gathering or training, but your price is too funny. Imagine if you were given a stealth mission, you would try your best to infiltrate the target organization and finally steal the target's thoughts, but you would have to pay the price immediately. Tell the stolen thoughts to the target. Meow meow meow. Haha. It seems so. Imagining this scene, there was a strange feeling of tranquility. Paying the price would betray one's identity, it was like a dead cycle. This is a bit like a superpower that predicts the future. Just using this ability to predict the number of tomorrow's lottery results in forgetting the predicted content. And the original sin is severe Parkinson's syndrome, leaving you with no chance to even record the answer. Two people and a cat waited quietly in the car until all the parade procession passed through the street, leaving an empty space on the road ahead and a lot of garbage on the ground. You can go now. Luo Qing started his car again and headed straight towards the eastern suburbs. Due to the procession passing by, there were fewer cars on the road ahead, and the journey was smooth and unobstructed, quickly reaching the Anji Tinglan Villa area. The car drove deep along the road by the lake, and even Uncle Cat exclaimed, "Not bad, the environment here is really good. I didn't see that you, Xinyan, are a wealthy second generation. Heart nightmare." Shen Mi still felt unfamiliar with this title, pondering for a few seconds before casually saying, "No, I am the wealthy generation. Rich generation." Cat and Luo Qing were both surprised. Wealth belongs to her sister Luo Sheng, and she is on the same level as her sister. It's not what the rich generation is. Shen Mi chuckled inwardly, afraid that Uncle Cat and Luo Qing wanted to break their heads and couldn't understand the true meaning of this rich generation. Sure enough, Uncle Cat muttered to himself. How could? Meow. Aren't you still at school? I've read your profile and you're not married yet. Are you being taken care of? It's not like dirty and ugly, that woman can look up to it. Ignoring the fragmented thoughts of the old cat, the car parked directly at the entrance of Villa 27, and the two of them got off the car with a cat. Shen Mi saw her new home for the first time outside the door. A two-story villa with an attic, surrounded by green trees and lawns in the back, and a large fenced courtyard in front. Luo Xing planted many flowers and plants, and it was adjacent to the asphalt road around the lake. On the other side of the road was the lakeside, with a wooden corridor extending over the lake. It's really beautiful. I'm leaving. Luo Qing said goodbye to Shen Mi and Uncle Cat. Goodbye. Shen Mi had a good impression of this shy little white face. Sitting in the driver's seat, Luo Qing smiled and said, "It's best not to see me again. The next time you see me, it's very likely that you've been arrested." He then drove away directly. Shen Mi took off the key hanging from her neck. This was a special anti-forgetting measure taken by Luo Xing for fear of being forgotten. Just as she was about to open the door, Shen Mi remembered last night's incident and asked Uncle Cat. "Sister saw Vera and the four of them last night. What if she asks?" "Don't worry." Uncle Cat said nonchalantly, "That memory has been erased." Eliminating memories, Vera seemed to have said so at the time. Shen Mi opened the door skeptically and walked into the hall. Unexpectedly, a familiar angry voice came over. Shen Mi looked up and saw Luo Xing walking down the stairs in his pajamas, just as she bumped into herself entering the door. Before we could speak, the barrage of gunfire had already started. "How many times have you said it? You're already 22 years old. Do you have some living ability? At least clean yourself up. I haven't been at home for 2 days, look at your bedroom. It's like a garbage dump. Don't always lie in bed reading romance novels, go out and exercise more, at least come to the study to review your homework. You are about to graduate, and continuing your studies is destined to be out of the question. Although you can come to work at my clinic after graduation, you won't do anything and just receive your salary." So familiar, as if it's a replay. Shen Mi sneered and quickly reached out to cover her face. Luo Xing was momentarily taken aback by Shen Mi's actions, then became angry and opened fire again. "Learn to cover your face now, afraid I'll see your micro-expression. Can't you grow up a bit and share some of my workload with me? I was so tired from work yesterday that I fell asleep on the sofa when I came back. I even missed the meeting with the wife of the vice president of the city. Now you've learned to stay up all night. Where did you hang out last night? You're getting worse and worse." A new word has emerged. Like my mother when I was a child, the way she trains people goes completely against her usual gentleness. However, from the scolding words, Shen Mi grasped that her sister's memory had indeed been deleted, starting from yesterday. Before seeing her with a calm heart, Shen Mi smiled and said, "I had a headache last night, so I went to solve the problem." Perhaps it was because he was quite far away that Luo Xing couldn't see Shen Mi's micro-expression clearly, or maybe it was because the sentence itself was very true. Luo Xing stopped his firepower inside, saying, "You haven't eaten yet. You can go to the restaurant to eat, I'll do it." This Luo Xing, Shen Mi wanted to shake her head and smile bitterly. Every time she scolded her younger brother, she disregarded her image and transformed from a lady to a mother's knife fork. However, the result was always to lift her up high and gently put it down, without any effect. This is family affection and a model of countless mothers failing to educate. Shen Mi was about to turn around and go to the restaurant when Luo Xing frowned and asked, "What's behind you?" "It's Fluffy." "Oh." Shen Mi just remembered Uncle Cat. This guy seemed to be scared by Luo Xing's firepower and kept hiding behind him. He then extended a foot and kicked the old cat out from behind. "You actually brought back a cat. Wildcats carry a lot of bacteria, don't you know?" Luo Xing's anger was ignited again, but after his gaze fell on the chubby cat, his tone suddenly softened. Cat. Cat. This chubby cat is so cute. Uncle Cat was originally unhappy when he was kicked out, but when he heard Luo Xing's words, he immediately got into the play and played coquettishly with a long voice. Meow. Come on. Come on, I want a hug. Luo Xing ran down the stairs. The old cat regained its energy and rushed towards Luo Xing in 3 steps, jumping up from the ground and jumping into Luo Xing's arms. It rubbed its head against Luo Xing's pajamas, and its face was full of happiness. Shen Mi has petrified sister, where is your integrity? Just now, it was clearly stated that cats have bacteria sure enough. Women have no resistance to things with fur, and uncles have no resistance to beautiful women. Even if they become cats. Seeing the old cat looking at her with a mischievous smile, Shen Mi had an impulse to go up and strangle him. This old embryo. Just before Shen Mi could erupt, Luo Xing suddenly said, "Oh, I forgot it was a wild cat. There's an unpleasant smell on it." Quickly looking up at the time, Luo Xing said to Shen Mi, "You go eat first. I still have an hour to go to work, go take a bath for the fat cat." This time, Uncle Chang Cat petrified on the spot under Shen Mi's gaze. Meow! Uncle Cat screamed heartily and wanted to escape, but unfortunately Luo Xing held him tightly and couldn't break free. Retribution. Cats are most afraid of water. No cat likes to take a shower. Moreover, Uncle Cat cannot speak, which violates heavenly punishment. Seeing Uncle Cat's desperate look for help, Shen Mi realized that her anger had dissipated and suddenly felt refreshed. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Barbing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Barbing. Shen Mi walked to the restaurant, and on the table was the food prepared by her sister. There is sticky congee, some vegetables with green leaves, and a bread with bacon. It is still a combination of Chinese and Western. My stomach had already rebelled, and Shen Mi didn't care about anything else. She wolfed down everything. The taste is not good, but when I'm extremely hungry, everything I eat feels delicious. Filling her stomach, Shen Mi threw herself onto the soft bed, and then she could hear the roar of the hair dryer and the screams of Uncle Cat upstairs. Feeling drowsy, Shen Mi glanced at the 28-hour clock and still felt like she was in a dream. However, when this dream cannot be awakened, it is destined to be a nightmare. As soon as she thought of this, vaguely, Shen Mi felt as if she had returned to Earth, to her familiar and warm home. However, subconsciously, there seemed to be a voice shouting incessantly. You can't go back. Parents will be anxious and sad. Losing their only son. I can't go back, at least there's nothing I can do now. Unexpectedly, it seems that I will temporarily live with this identity. When I woke up, it was already noon, and the hour clock on the wall clock accurately pointed downwards. At position 14. A 20.8-hour clock. Flipped over. The high-end silk bedding does indeed help with sleep, making the unpredictable feeling full of energy, but the delicate touch makes people not want to leave, just want to melt on it. Staring at the second hand on the clock, I inexplicably realized the need to quickly familiarize myself with the time of this world. Of course, this can refer to the original owner's memory. Because 20.8 cannot be divided by a whole number, Time In directly formed a time system using the 56 base system. The second hand jumps twice through a number, and after one revolution, it jumps a total of 56 times before the minute hand jumps again. The distance of the minute hand's jump is the same as that of the second hand, which means that the minute hand jumps 56 times, that is, after one revolution, the hour hand jumps one number. For example, now, if the hour hand points between 14 and 15, the minute hand points between 8 and 9, and the second hand points at 12, then the current time calculation should be 14.8 by 2 minutes 12 by 2 seconds. The natural pronunciation is 14.16 minutes 24 seconds. And in this world, 1 second. According to the original owner's lack of physical activity, it can be roughly set to have a heart rate of 75 beats per minute, calculated in 1 minute on Earth. In this world, the heartbeat is 75 beats, and the second hand beats a total of 50 beats. So 1 second on the Rodanian continent is 60/50ths times that of 1 second on Earth, which is 1.2 seconds, which is a bit longer than Earth's second. That is to say, 1 hour in this world is equal to 56 times 56 times 1.2 is equal to 3,763 Earth seconds, which is slightly longer than 1 hour on Earth, but only more than 100 Earth seconds apart, very close. 28 hours a day. This world's day is indeed more than 4 hours on Earth. The algorithm of time is very simple, but because I am not used to it, Shen Mi has been calculating for a long time, and I can't help roast. Fortunately, my primary school math is okay, otherwise I will be crazy. Because there are 4 more hours, the lifestyle of the Iron Man has become interesting. He needs to take 2 naps a day. One night between 26 p.m. and 7 a.m., and the afternoon around 14 p.m. to 16 p.m. The total sleep duration is about 12 hours. Eating doesn't make much difference, it's also in the morning, middle, and evening, but because the time in the morning and afternoon is longer, we usually add meals, such as morning, afternoon tea, and late-night snacks. When I thought of the month, I was slightly surprised because I searched through the original owner's memory and found that although this world also has the concept of the month, there is only a starry sky in this world, and there is actually no moon. There is no moon. I don't know if the menstrual cycle is related to this, but if it is, this is almost a blessing for female travelers. Unfortunately, I am a man. Unexpectedly, strange thoughts diverged. The unfathomable lack of biological knowledge does not dwell on this issue. Continuing to recall the rules of time, Rodinia has 270 or 271 days per year, and the year is directly divided into 3 seasons. Upper, middle, and lower, equivalent to spring, summer, and autumn, with 90 days per season. Whenever the end of a year can be divided by 5, there is 1 more day in the year, which is 271 days. The extra day is not counted towards any month and is a separate day. It is said to be known as Changxing Festival, a day commemorating the statue in Central Square, which is celebrated throughout the continent. This year is the year 1105 of the Unified Era. 271 days. There is no winter in this world. Unexpectedly, he is very happy about this because he doesn't like winter. It's too cold. As for distance, it is exactly the same as on Earth, but lacks the original standards and cannot be accurately measured. I don't know if 1 meter in this world is completely equal to 1 meter on Earth, it's just a visual approximation. After more than half an hour of tinkering, I finally figured out these things and felt like sweat was coming out. However, through this round of calculations, it is also possible to roughly determine that this is not Earth. The rules of year, month, day, and time are derived from orbits, satellite orbits, and planetary rotations, which are clearly different from Earth. Time travel is not such a simple thing. Although I was just a street fighting author before my time travel, I still had a wide range of knowledge due to years of coding. I felt a little proud and assumed that the things I had just calculated were not common sense, but advanced science. I woke up happily. The chaos on the ground once again caught the eye. Pig's nest. The chaotic scene contrasted sharply with the high-end bedding on the bed, causing an inexplicable wave of retching. He rushed out of the room to fill a basin of water and poured it directly onto the ground. Picking up a mop for cleaning, I wiped the floor 3 times to restore the luster of the wooden floor. Then, I wiped the furniture again, stacked the bedding, and the entire bedroom looked brand new. At this point, looking back, the decoration of the room was really exquisite, but it turned out to have been ruined by the original owner and didn't look like it. The villa, with its exquisite decoration, Luo Xing really has money. Unexpectedly, he was happy that he had not traveled to the slums and directly sent himself to the bathroom. There was a bathtub, which he saw yesterday. I took a hot bath in pain and pleasure. Finally, it took a whole half block of soap to clean my whole body up and down, as if I had peeled off a layer of skin. I really shed a layer of skin, and after opening the drain valve after taking a shower, the sebum in the dirty water almost caused blockage. It took another half-hour to restore the almost scrapped bathtub to its original state. Standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom again, my beard and hair still needed to be treated. After rummaging through the boxes and cabinets for a long time, I finally pulled out a box of rusty blades and gritted my teeth, scraping off all my beard. The unfathomable in the mirror feels like a different person. I can't say I'm handsome, at least I look like a 20.2-year-old person, and I'm still pretty. Sure enough, every otaku is a potential stock. The unpredictable decision is either not to tidy up thoroughly, to change clothes and prepare to go out for a haircut. As he walked out of the already clean room, his heart inexplicably moved and he shouted, "Uncle Cat." After shouting 3 times in a row, the old cat lazily replied on the second floor, "Meow." A few seconds later, a plump cat figure appeared on the stairs. The hair all over the body was like being struck by lightning, flying up and down. The oil on the hair was washed away, becoming incredibly fluffy. Walking down the stairs was like a round ball of hair. The consequences of cat bathing. Unable to resist any longer, he smiled a few times and read a dangerous signal in Uncle Cat's melancholic eyes. He quickly turned around, picked up the 2 silver coins left by his sister, opened the door, and left. The old cat followed closely behind. "Stay so much this time. Usually it's only 30 copper dollars or 40 copper dollars. Unexpectedly, I quickly recalled the currencies in this world. 1 gold dollar equals 100 silver dollars equals 10,000 copper dollars, and each level of paper currency is linked to metal currency. However, now due to the recovery of precious metals by the coalition government, circular metal currencies of silver and gold dollars are becoming less and less common in the market. As for paper currency, the gold dollar has 2 currencies, 1 and 10, while the silver dollar and copper dollar have denominations of 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, and 50. The purchasing power of 1 silver dollar is roughly equivalent to a big red ticket in one's hometown. 2 silver coins, this is the first time in history. Sister Baonan has never been so wealthy before. After nearly 3 hours of tinkering, it was exactly 6 p.m. in the afternoon, equivalent to 3:30 p.m. on Earth. The sunshine was bright, and a warm breeze blew the lake surface, causing a ripple. The wind also blew on the old cat, causing it to take on another shape. Actually, inexplicably suppressed a smile and turned to the cat uncle who followed. "I just went out to get a haircut, so there shouldn't be anything wrong." "No way." Uncle Cat shook his head and said, "Just remember to call me. You're a newcomer and have a problem controlling the contract. I have to keep following." "Okay." Mocha nodded and put the 2 silver coins in his hand deep into his pocket. He smiled and said, "There's plenty of money. Uncle Cat, do you want to buy cat food for you? You can buy some, that thing's not too bad yet." The old cat snorted heavily, "At least it's not as fishy as dried fish." The villa area is not small, and it took more than 20 minutes to walk out. Coupled with an unpredictable mood, I wanted to walk around, recall and familiarize myself with the environment. When I found the barber shop again, it was already an hour later. "Welcome." 2. The barber at the small shop was a Chinese, and when he saw 1 person and 1 cat, he cleverly said the wrong thing. "A haircut. A bit trendy. 20 copper coins. Nowadays, students prefer inches, with shorter sides and longer tops, which is fashionable." The young barber pointed to the sketch on the wall and said, "It's also more suitable for your face shape." "Oh." I looked at it inexplicably for a while, and found a familiar feeling from the portrait, which resembled the hairstyle of He Chen in a TV drama. "Okay, that's it." "Okay." The Chinese barber readily agreed and started. The old cat sat directly on the seat next to it, looking at it inexplicably, as if asleep, intentionally or unintentionally. Under the pressure of scissors, hair fell off like snowflakes one after another. I couldn't bear this kind of idle sitting the most. I couldn't help but think about the cost of the contract. The payment outcome of the contract price is important. If you pry into the secrets of others, you must reveal your truth to them. Truthfulness. The true content must probably be based on the essence of the other person's thoughts and ideas, rather than hearing what the other person is thinking and responding with a truthful answer of, "There are 20.8 hours in this world." That is to say, the voice of exploration and the cost of expression must be related, or even just different versions of the same thing. Telling others the true situation of thinking. It's a bit like a life mentor, not right. More like a prodigy. Even if it's just retelling the other person's thoughts and feelings, it's a bit like a big mouth of gossip. The kind of person you usually dislike the most. Through Captain Willis' test, there are two types of answers that can pay the price. One is to directly express the thoughts and feelings of the target, and the other is similar to summarizing the thoughts of others. Why does it sound so annoying? Who would use you to summarize it? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Payment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Payment. Just as my thoughts were swirling, I suddenly looked through the mirror and saw that the barber who was busy on my head was not looking right, as if he was thinking about something. With a movement in my heart, spirituality suddenly arose, and a sense of emptiness spread instantly along the scissors on my hair to the barber. Even Uncle Cat felt a spiritual movement and raised the cat's head with caution. He should be able to apply for a card. This is a wealthy area nearby, and one cannot judge people by their appearance. Although this kid is dressed shabby, he should not lack money. I have a high probability of success. If I refuse, I'll stick to it. The voice quickly rang out in the unfathomable heart, just like the tone of the barber. No matter what world, you can encounter this kind of card application, inexplicably speechless. Uncle Cat had already felt the inexplicable ability to activate, looked up and kept watching, so that if there were any problems, he could take action in a timely manner, but unexpectedly, as if recalling something, he suddenly said with a hint of panic. "It's broken. I forgot to bring my wallet." The flying scissors on his head came to a sudden stop, and the barber was stunned. "I didn't even bring my wallet, so I still got a card for knitting." Unexpectedly, I am very satisfied at this moment because after speaking just now the headache has disappeared. I didn't bring my wallet originally, it's true, and it's the real result of the hairdresser trying to get an unpredictable card. Satisfied, he turned his head and saw the astonishment on the barber's face. He smiled inexplicably and said, "Let's finish it first." The barber felt like he had been aiming for half a day but missed a shot, and after half a minute, he said in a muffled voice on his face. "How will you pay?" $20 copper. After a moment of contemplation, he said, "I live nearby. You should know what people live nearby and won't default on your debts. If you're not confident, I can give you something as collateral and go back to redeem it." What you just thought was, this is a wealthy area, how could it be defaulted on? The barber's eyes lit up and he quickly said, okay. Anything from the rich may exceed the imagination of poverty. The barber is naturally happy, although things may not necessarily belong to him, but what if something happens? Is this young person at present perhaps a wealthy second generation who is generous in his actions? Perhaps he forgot to come back for redemption. Perhaps he got lost after going home to get the money and won't be able to find it again. Perhaps things are very valuable, even more expensive than this barber shop. Although the price has been paid by now and the barber's thoughts can no longer be heard, the smile on the barber's lips in the mirror can also guess what he is thinking. Sitting back upright, the scissors on my head continue to fly. The old cat had a strange and mischievous smile on its face, but it just flashed away and continued to sit in its seat. In less than 10 minutes, the inexplicably thick long hair disappeared, and the whole person appeared even more refreshing. After cleaning his hair, he inexplicably turned around to the barber and calmly took out a silver dollar from his pocket, saying, "Collect the money." The barber was shocked and said, "Didn't you not bring your wallet?" I nodded inexplicably and said, yes, I didn't bring my wallet. But I did bring money. The barber was momentarily confused, feeling that the other person's smile was a bit cheap. Seeing the silver dollar in the hands of the unknown, it's always not possible not to accept it. The barber instinctively took the money and found the unknown 80 copper dollars. Watching the figure inexplicably leaving with the old cat, the young barber touched the silver dollar in his hand, feeling as if something was missing. 20 copper dollars for a haircut. This kid has already paid. That's right, what exactly is missing? I didn't expect that this would also pay the price. On the way back, Uncle Cat asked thoughtfully, what did you hear him thinking? Let me apply for a card. Inexplicably smiled. It can still be like this. The old cat almost stumbled. It's true that I didn't bring my wallet, and the fact that I didn't bring my wallet is the result of his thoughts, he guessed inexplicably. Uncle Cat stopped his lively limbs, lost in thought. After waiting for him for a while, Uncle Cat finally said, are you a logical genius? Can you think of this way? To avoid getting a card. Naturally, I thought of it, said inexplicably and nonchalantly. Naturally. Uncle Cat's eyes narrowed and he said, let's go home. Seeing Uncle Cat's somewhat surprised expression, he thought to himself inexplicably that it might be because on Earth, he always engaged in various conflicts with readers and netizens on forums, which led to his ability to search for various logical loopholes being exercised every day. He was already familiar with it, and it was also possible that he himself was a street fighting writer. A storyteller who often used logic to deduce the direction of stories. In particular, he had written 2 detective novels. However, one should also study their own costs carefully. While strolling and admiring the swans swimming on the lake, one should continue to ponder while at the barbershop. Captain Vera's test results show that there are 2 ways to directly pay the price. Firstly, it is to directly recite the thoughts and feelings of the target, that is, to narrate them word for word. The second approach is to make a rough summary of what the target is thinking and analyze a rough result from what the other person is thinking. For example, Luo Qing's thoughts are full of concern for Vera, so he has a crush on her. And just now, he asked me to apply for a card. Without a wallet. From the perspective of difficulty, it is safer to directly restate the idea of the goal, and it can be easily paid at almost any time, but the method is too simple and rough, and cannot be used frequently. After all, it is necessary to deal with ordinary people and directly retell their thoughts in person. This will definitely make the target feel unbelievable, and they will immediately notice that they can read their minds. This is a violation of the covenant of the covenant. We must never play the sidelines and test the terms of the heavenly punishment. So there's only the second way left. I inexplicably confirmed this way. The second method has a certain difficulty threshold. This requires analyzing the ideas and content of the target in order to obtain true results. Accuracy depends on one's analytical ability. However, the second approach also has the advantage of masking the ability of telepathy, making the target imperceptible. There is difficulty, there is risk, but the victory lies in not violating heavenly punishment unexpectedly. This can be quite stressful, with the requirement to not reveal one's abilities in front of ordinary people, and to accurately summarize the truth, abstraction, and complexity that the other person wants to represent in their heart. However, I can't think of any better way for now. Let's use the second method first, and try to minimize the use of contractual ability in daily life. Slowly develop other payment methods in the future. Unpredictable and aimless thoughts, realizing that I really have no motivation at all. Since I decided to live in an unpredictable identity, I am extremely lacking in a sense of purpose at this time. Perhaps it's because student life itself is the happiest time of one's life. Without work pressure, no need to support oneself, no need to look at the face of leaders. There is also a wealthy and beautiful sister who will give money to spend. This is much better than the life of being trapped in a low-rent house, racking my brain and writing a lot of words, and having my hair shaved off before traveling. Don't worry about hunger. Isn't happiness just right now? I am such an easily satisfied person. My mind was filled with thoughts, and I couldn't help but mutter in an inexplicable voice. Meow. Uncle Cat meowed as if in agreement. After buying cat food, I slowly and leisurely walked around the entire Anji Tinglan community. When I returned home, I felt the abundance brought by 28 hours a day. It was not yet 20 o'clock, and there were still more than 2 hours before Luoxing finished work. Unexpectedly feeling bored, I cleaned the lobby on the first floor again. It's not because he's diligent, but because he's used to living hard and always feels that such a good villa needs careful care. Luoxing is actually a very hard-working person who firmly opposes hiring a butler. All household chores are taken care of by one person at this unpredictable moment. One can think of the real reason behind it. The original owner has social barriers, and hiring a stranger at home may cause certain negative consequences. Luoxing is extremely meticulous in herself, even though she is already very busy, she still stubbornly chooses to clean alone. Finally, tidying up the kitchen, seeing that everything was on the seasoning table, I suddenly had the urge to cook. This can both consume time and savor the food I have become accustomed to. Rice, noodles, oil, chili peppers, salt. Unexpectedly, when I opened the old-fashioned wooden refrigerator, I found that there were still many vegetables inside. This old-fashioned refrigerator is very interesting. It is a wooden box similar to a handicraft, with ice cubes on the bottom layer and ice cubes on the top layer, and various ingredients stored in the middle. There are many vegetables that I haven't seen before. However, I still found familiar spinach. Turn on the gas, inexplicably boil a pot of hot water first, dissolve some salt in warm water to mix with the dough, soften it until it is softer than dumpling noodles, and then apply a little peanut oil on the surface of the dough. Cut the dried chili peppers into small pieces, foam the scallions and garlic, and set aside. Find a large bowl, mix 4 tablespoons of soy sauce and 3 tablespoons of vinegar directly in the bowl, and adjust to make bowl juice. The dough has been kneaded for half an hour, then rolled and pressed to slowly elongate into finger-wide noodles. It is cooked directly in the pot, and after being 80% cooked, washed spinach is added. The whole pot of water suddenly turns light green. Noodles and spinach are almost cooked at the same time. After removing them, drain the water and put them into a prepared bowl of juice. Place scallions, ginger, garlic foam, and chopped chili peppers on the noodles. A spoonful of peanut oil is heated on gas and poured directly onto chopped green onion, ginger, and chili peppers. The scorching temperature stimulates the aroma of green onion, garlic, and chili peppers, instantly spreading unexpectedly. The salivary glands are secreting wildly. Just turned off the gas, brushed the pot and chopping board, and the door opened in response. Luoxing walked in with his pocket in hand and said, "I brought you fast food. Hurry up and eat. I have to leave later. I have something to do tonight." "Ha! What's so delicious?" Unexpectedly, with one hand holding noodles and the other holding noodle soup, he walked out of the kitchen and placed it on the dining table. "Try it." "What did you do?" Luoxing had a feeling of the sun rising from the west. Mocha nodded. Luoxing hung his handbag on the chair, only then did he notice a change in his unpredictable appearance. He was clean and tidy, as if he had changed someone else. Looking at his younger brother in confusion, Luoxing moved the noodles from the dining table and carefully picked up one with chopsticks. "Mix well first," inexplicably reminded. "Oh." Luoxing processed it like the law, with no remaining oil at the bottom of the bowl. The sauce and vinegar in the bowl were washed at high temperature and evenly adhered to the surface, creating a fragrant aroma. Carefully picking up a noodle and slowly putting it into his mouth, the elasticity of the noodles mixed with the fresh fragrance of seasoning and the stimulation of chili peppers. Luoxing suddenly felt his soul melt. Looking up at the unfathomable person next to him, Luoxing lowered his head and indulged in pleasure. The demeanor of a lady was already boundless. In less than 3 minutes, a bowl of noodles bottomed out. Sister, this is for 2 people. Unexpectedly, he silently picked up Luoxing's handbag, took out the hamburger with only remaining warmth inside, and took a hard bite. End of this chapter.